Yes, hello, how are you? It's Destination Newry. I'm Rowan Hand. This is Feargal. McCormack, you're very welcome, Feargal, for our chittle-chattle about the world of our business. What's happening on screen, Sean? I'm seeing a mixture of everything here. Shall I ignore the screen? We're ignoring the screen. That's important to do.
How are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's good to see you. I'm well, with the exception of some gremlins in the tubery that makes up all of the electronics here. But that happens. It's the first time it's ever happened to us, isn't it?
No better man to face the challenges of IT than Rowan Hand, eh?
Especially when you know nothing about it. You don't know the fear factor
Oh, no.
there. Listen, the Ulster Bank survey today telling us that things aren't too bad. There's jobs coming in, especially in construction.
Yeah, well, I think it's encouraging because what they're saying is that of all the UK sectors, the most significant growth in jobs happened to be in Northern Ireland. And I think, look, this is a continuation of the news we've been seeing now quite regularly over a number of months, which really is that consumer confidence is growing, inflation is still low, you have global market stability, and it is an ideal opportunity for a fragile recovery to take hold.
Isn't it a grand way to be? Bearing in mind where we've come from.
Well, I think because of where we've come from, I think we'll appreciate it all the more. But equally, hopefully, we'll also learn from the past and not get carried away.
Well, there's a danger of carry away, I suppose. You know, the economy has to spend. The Irish News telling us that consumer survey reveals people ready to splash cash. People appear more willing to spend and are feeling much more confident about their financial situation. Be a case of, you know, cars are being bought, this, that, and the other. But that's again, you would warn. This needs to be balanced.
Well, I think it's good to see people spending. I think actually the next stage obviously is to try and see investment spending and refer the last budget by encouraging businesses to utilise very attractive capital allowances, tax incentives for purchasing capital equipment. Hopefully will encourage that. What I'm simply saying is, and I'm not trying to in any way stagnate people spending, is that we need to be conscious that interest rates are at an all-time low. And the one thing we don't want to do is to grow our personal debt to a level which would make it very difficult if interest rates rise. So what I'm really saying is, to be fair, Rowan, I'm saying that if you're earning it and you're making more money, yes, spend it. But if you're reading the newspapers and believe that it's time just to spend because everybody else is spending, be very conscious if you take out debt that it may become more expensive to pay it back than this present.
When things start to go up. And this is the thing to watch for.
Point.
What sort of week has it been for you at your desk?
A very good week. Look, I think we're blessed. You know, I'm fortunate with young workforce, young colleagues, and I'm inspired by their energy and their drive and their creativity. And you know, I think there's a lot of goodness out there with the Special Olympics collection on Friday. And
Sorry
again,
about that. Yes, down Warren Point.
Yeah, the people of Newry and Warren Point were very, very generous and. You know, I think it once again shows that we have a sense of belonging here, a sense of community, a sense that we need to try and make a difference for all our citizens.
Yeah, and you do that. You do that.
Well, we try.
Bank launches a £1 million fund for SMEs in the north. 100 million funding pot for small and medium businesses in the north has been launched by HSBC. Well, nobody can accuse them of not lending.
Look, I think we need to be careful here. I think banks only make money when they lend. So it's not that banks don't want to lend. It's the reality is that we need confidence in business, first of all, to come forward with positive proposals. I believe there is now confidence growing. I certainly in my own business, I'm seeing a number of business opportunities are rising from clients, etc. And I would be very hopeful, as I think I have been for about the last 9-10 months now, that we are emerging and that we'll be a fitter and leaner business community going forward.
See, you're pivotally placed to make this observation because the business life of the community comes through your doors, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank God we've been very fortunate in that we have access to a lot of exciting business opportunities, but more importantly also exciting challenges now and again to help people hopefully to get out of difficult situations that they've got into.
Is it possible, how possible is, I know it's how long is a piece of string question, but if we accept the premise, and we've spoken about it before, that It's on the rebound. It's on the second time round that the millions can be made. In America, if you don't go broke 3 times, you're never going to go anywhere. But are some people too far gone to do anything with? Are most situations in some way rescuable?
No, I don't think people are too far gone. I think that read the situations you refer to, maybe we have to let go of those and start again. But I think that anyone who is able to breathe has an opportunity to make success in the future.
That's a good philosophy.
We must learn from the past. But as I think I've said to you, Rowan, before, intelligent failure must be allowed in a mature society, and there is no doubt. Whether you look at any successful business leader, any leader perhaps in all forms of life, and this applies to you and me, I'm sure, certainly applies to me, we have learned our greatest lessons from probably our biggest mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's that you must learn that lesson and then move forward.
People's own personal situations, we talk about businesses, we talk about big business, we talk about SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses. But is ordinary personal finance, individual Joe Soap on the street, is that all below you? Is that too small for you to take an interest in?
No, not at all, actually. Our rescue and recovery division, and I use the word recovery as well, which is more important, our restructuring division, we deal with a significant amount of personal cases will be a very significant part of our business. I think the key to realise in all this, in perhaps most situations in life, is that you can't change the past. So you need to say, this is where I am. You can only do what's reasonable to go forward. So don't worry every night sleeping about
people
not
do,
sleeping,
don't they?
About what you can't control. So once you get good advice and realise the way forward, then I think at that stage it's amazing where you can move forward. Once you realise where you're coming from.
Yeah, the ordinary people. I've read about it this week somewhere. There are voluntary agreements or something people can reach into, as opposed to going into liquidation. Is that
well, we've been doing those now for many years.
What are they?
Well, there's a number of different types. For the individual, it's called an IVA, an individual voluntary arrangement. And I would say there's hardly a week goes by we don't do 4 or 5 in the office.
Yes.
There's then a thing called a CVA, which is it really for a company? It's a creditor's voluntary arrangement. And these basically are when you come to an arrangement with your creditors, repayment plan, which normally would result in not a full repayment of the debt, but there has to be hurt on both sides. So what you got to try and convince the creditor is, the person you owe the money, that they're better off if they accept this proposal for cash flow, and equally that it's not as if you're running away to spend the money and not paying them back. Circumstances have arisen as they are, but this is the best you can do, and you think this is a win-win for both parties.
And people are being wise.
Everybody needs a significant portion need to agree to it, and then it goes, the court approve it, which means that anybody, so long as you have a certain percentage, then it depends, but so long as you have a certain percentage, then the minority can't go after you.
Yeah.
It's a very significant protection.
It's a good
you get protection from the court. Oh, yeah.
It's a good protection. It's a good protection.
But make no mistake about it, we strongly recommend it, and particularly in people, you see the number of cases, particularly people who are way behind on their mortgages, and really there's no...
It must be hard.
There's no opportunity for... Well, again, may I say that it's very satisfying to see when you reassure people of the way forward.
Of course.
Where this despair comes from now and again is a belief there isn't a way forward. There's always a way forward.
Yeah. But perhaps not a way forward if the mortgage is, if there's equity in the house and there's a substantial amount, that can be going. You'll hardly get into a voluntary arrangement there. They'll be chasing the house.
Well, to be fair, I mean, you got to remember in the first instance, you entered into an arrangement, you got money. And, if you owe the money back and you have the money...
You have to do it.
You have to pay it
And that's
back.
called downsizing, perhaps.
Yeah, but again, I think, there are ways to look at that, extending the period of the loan. In most cases, I would say so far, we have found less than 1% that we haven't been able to find
a solution.
But there has to be, a recognition that there must be pain on both sides. You can't expect the financial institution to take all the pain. But equally, the financial institution can't expect you
to take.
All the pain. And
'Cause
that's where the middle road
Yeah.
works, because what you're doing is, yes, you may be getting a friend who's willing to say, if somebody owes 100,000, I'll put 20 in.
Yeah.
But money, so the bank really is getting 20 more than the other ways it got.
Yeah.
But the other really then's been written off.
Yeah.
Do you understand that? That's, you know,
They've been doing it a bit. They've been doing it a bit in the Republic over the last quarter. I've seen some of the
not to
figures
the same
coming
extent
through.
yet. They still have to learn. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been doing it here in the north, in the UK. It's just been common right from. It's always been there
Yeah.
in the last.
It's been cruel. It's been cruel in the Republic up until about 3 months ago. It
Well,
was
the problem in the Republic is that the legislation is there now, but you're still not seeing very good exercising of it, because, to be honest with you, some of the banks are taking a very tough line in the Republic. And the reason being is, one of the reasons being is, the bankruptcy laws are different.
Aye.
In the UK here, you can be subject to performing everything within the law. You can be discharged from bankruptcy after 12 months. So that's a big negotiating thing with the bank. You can say, well, look, I can just go bankrupt, you get nothing.
Absolutely.
Do you get me?
Absolutely.
Whereas
I
in the
do.
south, you could potentially, it used to be 12 years, now 7. That's a harder negotiation.
Yeah. The Anglo case probably will end up this week. The jury's back this morning and they're in consideration again. Have you been following it?
I have from a distance. I obviously, we cannot prejudice, but what I would say to you is, I would hope people would appreciate it's not black and white.
No, it's not.
And I'm not sure.
The judge has been saying that.
I'm not sure prior to the case that people would have thought that.
No.
I think my own view would be is that if the people are found guilty, I think they'll appeal.
They will.
Because I think, personally, I think it's a very thin line around here. What is now evident is, and the judge has said this, it isn't the regulator who's on trial.
No.
But what the case has thrown up is, it would appear, that certainly the regulator was aware of an awful lot more than was once thought of. And what the judge has said, which if you think about it, is a hard enough direction to the jury.
Yeah.
He's made one other comment, which I think as an individual is a hard direction to the jury. And it's how you interpret it. He has said that a director must take their decisions, which we all accept. But he implies that the court should not be taking into account any advice the director was given.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I actually not sure that. I think that's a tough ruling, because I have to say, if you or I are a director, I think the test should be that you acted reasonably in the light of the prevailing circumstances.
Yeah.
I can understand we can't blame the advice. You must ultimately take the decision.
Yeah.
But I think if you seek the best advice in the land, and that advice says to you to do X, and that advice turns out to be wrong, I think consideration should be given to the fact that you sought the advice in the first place. So therefore, I ultimately believe that the final decision is with the director, but I have to say I'm slightly worried by the innuendo that the director should know everything. The director can only, in my opinion, act reasonably. That will be expected of a reasonable person.
It was finally a huge directive indeed from the judge when he said to them, basically said, you must not hang these people out to dry for the sins of the entire nation. And that was an interesting comment.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you know, this. If you think about it, Rowan, we've made a comment here a number of times, and let's make it again. You know, I have said, and I'm still waiting for anybody to give me an example. I'm not aware of any case yet, whether it be personal life, business life, or society, where looking back in anger achieved everything. And an angry nation or an angry crowd will not ultimately produce the results. No. And therefore, I believe I think the jury will be calm. I think you haven't heard the end of it. Well, obviously, if the people are found innocent, perhaps you found the end of it. But my gut feeling, having not sat on the case, but read it on and off in the papers, the one thing this case has proven is this is not a black and white case. This is a very tricky case. So I don't think we will have, I think if there are any guilty judgments after today, I think that this will go to a further court. I think the one thing is that I think it is thrown up, and this is not a black and white situation.
Okay, you're for Belfast?
For Belfast.
Go well.
Thank
Watch
you very
yourself.
much.
Travel well. Sean, some music, please.